Oh, hi, Glenn Kirschner. Hello, Glenn Kirschner. Hi.
Hello, Steph. Steph, you're like my own private Ed McMahon with that intro.
Yeah.
Hi-oh, yes, Glenn Kirschner. No, I know everyone has the same reaction to you, but you are just so. I love when you when you put on your glasses. I love when you hold up the criminal code book on TV. It's calming. It's all calming for me.
Thank you. I'm glad.
So we get our private updates. You texted Travis last week because you were in the Roger Stone trial, and you just said he's toast.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome.
I only wish I had that kind of evidence in the criminal cases I prosecuted. I mean, they're convicting him with his own emails and text messages. How sweet is that?
Right. Well, and you tweeted the key. Bannon just testified that, quote, the access point or potential access point of contact between the Trump campaign and WikiLeaks was Roger Stone. That sounds toasty to me. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah, it's toasty both for Stone, but also for the for the campaign, I should say, because I don't think we had heard that kind of direct link articulated before in the Mueller report or otherwise. Now, I pulled out the Mueller report again, I dusted it off, and I saw that there were really nothing but redactions during that part of Volume 1. So, obviously Mueller knew about this stuff, but sadly, he concluded he didn't have enough evidence to charge anybody in the Trump organization or campaign with a conspiracy, even though, the whole report is chock full of collusion not being the technical crime.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, it is sort of, the revenge of Mueller. Like, we're seeing all this again. You made a great point on Twitter, Glenn, as you do. You said, I will trust no representations by Barr, given his intentional mischaracterization of Mueller's report. Had Barr accurately related, Mueller documented 140 contacts between the Trump campaign and Russians and 10 instances of obstructing justice. Trump would already be gone. But, I mean, we're hearing this all again as we, meld into impeachment week for Ukraine, right?
Yeah, and Barr fooled us, once, and since then he's fooled us several times over. So when he stands up and says, you know what, we've investigated the investigators and we've found blockbuster information, I'm not going to believe a word he says. So yeah. I know everybody is anxious about what he's going to try to tell us he found with respect to the origins of the Russia investigation, but it is all going to be nonsense, and it's going to be designed to unfairly help Trump. So I think we should take it for the sort of amusement that it will be, but not get so wound up about what he claims he found on this sort of globe-trotting tour to undermine what U.S. intelligence and law enforcement communities have already concluded.
Glenn, you must dream of having clowns like this, like these Republicans, when you were prosecuting people, because, I mean, first of all, they can't seem to settle on any sort of coherent defense of Trump. I mean, we keep making jokes all morning about, we call Count Chocula, like, I mean, it makes no sense, right? What they're trying to call Hunter Biden, and obviously Schiff has said he is not going to allow this to be a sham investigation of the Bidens, right?
Right, and my take on this was, okay, they want to call Hunter Biden, and they want to call people to undermine the Steele dossier, and I'm like, okay, are they going to call Monica Lewinsky? Are they going to call? They're going to call all of the surviving relatives of John Wilkes Booth because of what he did to a Republican. I mean, come on, folks. It's pure nonsense. And in a court of law, the judge would rule all of these witnesses they have no admissible information to provide. So a judge would preclude their testimony. And unfortunately, an impeachment hearing and a trial in the Senate is kind of like no holds barred, because the jurors, the senators in the trial, are already hopelessly prejudiced one way or another by their very party affiliation. I mean, we do not have fair and impartial jurors in an impeachment trial in the Senate. So the whole thing is a big political game. But I hope, Steph, here's where I really believe the career patriots are going to shine. Later this week, when we see the Lieutenant Colonel Vindmans and the Ambassador Yovanovitches and the Fiona Hills and the George Kents testify, these are people who understand public service. When I see these knuckleheads like Mulvaney and Sondland, and I'm going to throw Nikki Haley into this mix too, given today's revelations, these people don't understand public service. They think it is self-dealing and self-aggrandizement and self-enrichment and self-promotion. They don't understand it is selfless service to the American people. And that's what the patriots who have been testifying for 10 hours at a clip behind closed doors in these House depositions are about to show the American people. And whoever cares to watch those hearings will be knocked over at the patriotism they see and at the crimes and abuses and corruption that these witnesses will expose inside the Trump administration.
Yeah, and you are tweeting it loud and clear, like all of the top legal experts. It's time to call this what it is: bribery. Bonus, it's extortion as well. Hashtag justice is coming. And same thing. Lawrence Tribe, among others, have been saying. Let's drop the whole quid pro quo thing because it's not. I think bribery and extortion are a. It's what it is, and B, it's easier to understand, right?
Yeah. Quid pro quo is a quaint and confusing little Latin term that is really just being deployed as a distraction right now. It is bribery because you have Trump basically. Bribery is nothing more than giving a thing of value or an incentive to a public official to take an act. Okay, so what he did was, he held on to that military aid that had already been allocated by Congress to help save the Ukrainian lives. He withheld that, and he said, I need you to do me a dirty political favor. That's bribery, and it's bribery exactly in the same way that if I have my paycheck and the pay clerk tries to hand me my paycheck and somebody else grabs it out of the pay clerk's hand and says, not so fast, I need you to do me a dirty favor, that's what he did. It's bribery by withholding something that Ukraine had a right to because Congress had already allocated it to them. So it's bribery. And because bribery is one of the big four in the impeachment clause, there's treason, bribery, high crimes, and misdemeanors. This is bribery. Let's go with bribery. It's also extortion, though. And I can go into the legal definition of extortion if you like, but it's extortion as well. It's two sides of the same criminal coin. Both of those things are impeachable. Of course, bribery is specifically set out in the impeachment clause. So let's call it what it is, bribery.
Glenn, what is going on with John Bolton? So his lawyer is saying all this titillating stuff that he has information that they don't have yet, and yet he just signed a book deal. You tweeted, how I hope the GOP tries to throw Giuliani, Mulvaney, and Sondland under the bus. Why? Because they will flip like pancakes on Trump. Trump inspires exactly zero loyalty. If pressed, no one will take the fall for Trump, in my opinion. The Trump walls soon will crumble. So where is Bolton in all this?
Bolton is he's doing that, self-dealing, self-promotion, self-aggrandizement thing, albeit through his lawyer, by saying, hey, folks, listen up. I got some really good dirt, and if you'll just hang on, you can buy it for $29.99 in my book. Well, that is he's being the anti-patriot. What he needs to do is march into Congress, raise his right hand, and say, this is why I called what Mulvaney and Sondland and there was a third
Giuliani.
Amigo was, I think, Giuliani and Perry. This is why I called it a drug deal, because when you call something a drug deal, Steph, you use that term for one reason and one reason only. You're trying to convey that this is criminal, this is wrong, this is dirty, this is a drug deal. My first question is, Mr. Bolton, why did you choose to call what you saw these men doing a drug deal? What was it that was criminal about it? But Bolton is playing the game that I've got a book coming out, and I may want to withhold the good stuff so I can get a little cheese out of all the American people before I tell them what was going on inside this corrupt administration.
You gave some free legal advice, which is not cheap when it comes from Glenn Kirschner. You said politicians who lie to the American people to cover up Trump's crimes against the U.S. are textbook examples of accessories after the fact. This is criminal. They must be held accountable. I think you're right about your previous tweet that people are. I think at the end of the day, you're right. They're going to flip like pancakes.
Yeah, and it really. That's not hyperbole. The definition of somebody who is a criminal accessory after the fact is if you know an offense has been committed against the United States, and willful blindness is not a defense. So these Republicans in Congress can't stand up and say, we didn't know that an offense had been committed against the United States. It's been committed by Trump and his cronies over and over and over again in plain sight. If you know an offense has been committed against the United States and you do anything to help the offender avoid being held accountable for it, you're guilty of the felony crime under our federal code of accessory after the fact. So these Republicans every day are literally committing that crime. That's not hyperbole. That comes from a career in law enforcement.
Yeah.
Now, the issue becomes, okay, when we once again have a law-abiding attorney general installed, what do we do with all of these crimes that have been committed? I don't think we can just turn the other cheek, let bygones be bygones, put the long national nightmare behind us. I think we need, a la Nuremberg trials, we need a Trump Crimes Commission to hold all these people accountable, because if we neglect to do that, then all we're doing is encouraging tomorrow's batch of illegal government officials. And, we need to have learned our lesson from Nixon. We didn't. If we don't learn it from Trump, we're done.
See, and this is why you bring up my daddy issues, because my daddy was a Nuremberg prosecutor.
Well, there you go. And thank him for his service.
Yeah, and is buried in Arlington. And I take great offense to Don Jr. talking about the sacrifice of the Trump family when he drove by Arlington. What a disgrace. But, you tweeted this same thought, and I so agree, Glenn. You said we must not pretend forgiving and forgetting will help the country heal. It didn't when we pardoned a criminal President Nixon, and it won't in the future. It'll give birth to someone even worse next time. I agree. I do not want to hear that whole thing, because we just have never experienced this at this level before, have we?
No. And you know what? Here's the good news. I think at least my eyes are open for the first time to what some of these politicians are really about, because on the front end of this scandal that really started even before Trump was elected, I had a deep and abiding faith that there was a baseline of patriotism below which all public officials would not sink. And I have been proved dead wrong about that. I'm glad we know that now. I'm glad we know that the Lindsey Grahams and the Mitch McConnells have no bottom. And now we can go about remedying it. We can run these people out of public office on a rail and actually elect people who have some baseline sense of patriotism, and they will not allow this to go on in the future.
Yeah. Quickly, what about Mulvaney? You said that this is Mulvaney asking the court if his boss, the president, is wrong by telling him not to testify. You said is actually a smart move. So, I mean, obviously, you also made a good point. Shouldn't Republicans put on their witness list people who could testify that Trump did nothing wrong? Well, there's a reason they don't want Mulvaney or Bolton or any of these people to testify. But what's happening with that?
Yeah, the Mulvaney thing I think is really interesting. So first of all, it's always an effort with the president's enablers and loyalists to run out the clock. And once this suit is now up and running in front of Judge Leon in federal court, it was brought by Kupperman, which is Bolton's deputy national security advisor. But because the House withdrew Kupperman's subpoena, it looks like they're trying to moot it out, trying to kill this suit. Judge Leon is doing a teleconference, even though court is closed, at 5 p.m. today, to basically tell us how he's going to handle this. There's a doctrine in the law that says if a problem is susceptible of recurrence, then the judge might still be able to decide the issue, even if the parties are trying to moot it out. But all of that is kind of down in the weeds of criminal law 101. But here, the Mulvaney thing that I think is really interesting is he first of all, is entering a suit that's been brought in part naming the president as one of the parties doing wrong here. And Mulvaney, but if I'm Kupperman and I'm actually in court trying to get a good faith opinion out of a judge as to whether I have to comply with Congress's subpoena demanding that I testify versus the president's demand that I not testify, the last person I want joining my suit as a co-plaintiff is this guy who was doing the criminal drug deal with Giuliani and company. It's like, I'm not having coffee with you, sport. Never mind having you join my suit as a co-defendant. Get away from me. So
calling people sport is something that really needs to come back into vogue, Glenn, and I'm glad you're spearheading that effort.
That's like a real term of derision. If I call you sport, that means you do nothing but wrong.
All right, finally, Glenn.
The Mulvaney piece is interesting. Yeah. Very kind of complex and contorted at this moment.
Okay. And finally, Glenn, because I know we're running long, as I always do with you, because as the jingle says, I could talk to you all day.
Yes.
But you tweeted Steve Bannon's testimony crushed Roger Stone's defense, also provided a direct and compelling link between the Trump campaign and Julian Assange. WikiLeaks, you said it's hurting not only Stone, but the entire Trump campaign. So how does the Roger Stone trial end, and what is the effect?
So it ends in his conviction on probably all counts. I could go into a long explanation on why I think there's wiggle room in one of the 7 counts. Not that will matter. And here is my hope. I often will take somebody to trial just because they will not cooperate with me. They will not give up what they know. I will take them to trial. I will get them convicted. And the day after they're convicted, but before they are sentenced, I'll go back to their lawyers and I'll say, look, I told you I was going to get you convicted. But you know what? The good news is you still have a slight crack in the window. It's still open. You can now come in and cooperate and tell me everything you know truthfully, and I will help you come your sentencing. I will actually speak for you at the time of your sentencing and say, Judge, he did wrong. He demanded his right to a trial. We gave him that trial. We convicted him. Belatedly, he came forward as a cooperator, and we want you to give him X years of credit for that. That's what I am hoping. That's that last shot that we as prosecutors can bring Roger Stone into the fold, on board, and he will give us Trump.
Wow. You are my Captain America, Glenn Kirschner. Thanks for taking time.
Thank you, Steph.
All right. Talk to you soon. There he goes.